Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Please hit that like button and share if you can because it really helps. And if you do, thank you very much. This is a miscellaneous Icelandic tale. It's called Bukolla and the Boy. Once there was a man who lived with his wife in a cottage. They had one son, but they weren't very fond of him. There were only the three of them in the cottage. The couple had a cow, which was all their livestock. The cow was called Bukolla. One day the cow had a calf, and the woman herself sat with her while she was delivering. When the cow had calved and had recovered, the woman dashed into the house. A little later she returned to the barn to see how the calf and cow were doing. But by then, Bukolla had disappeared. The man and his wife went out at once to look for the cow, and they searched for it both far and wide, but to no avail. On their return, they were in such a foul mood that they told the boy to get out and not come back within their sight again until he brought back the cow. They packed him some food for the road and gave him new shoes, and with that he set off. He walked for a long time until he became hungry, and he sat down to eat. In his desperation, he said out loud, "Moo now, my dearest Bukolla, if you're alive anywhere." From far, far away he heard the cow's response. Again the boy walked for a long time before he sat down to have another bite. Then he repeated, "Moo now, my dearest Bukolla, if you're alive anywhere." This time he heard the cow respond, somewhat closer than before. Once more the boy walked for a long time until he reached the brink of an enormous high precipice. Having walked up an appetite, he sat down to eat, again saying as before, "Moo now, my dearest Bukolla, if you're still alive somewhere." The cow's response now came from right under his feet. Somehow the boy clambered down the precipice, and reaching the bottom, he saw a large cave carved out of it. He went in, and there, bound to a low partition, he found Bukolla. He untied the cow immediately and led her out, and set off back home. The boy had gone only a small part of the way when he saw that a huge ogress was coming after him, accompanied by a smaller one. He realized at once that the big ogress, with her long strides, would catch up with him in no time, and he said, "What are we going to do now, my dearest Bukolla?" "Pick a hair from my tail and put it on the ground," said the cow. He did. Then the cow said to the hare, "By these words I lay the spell that you become a stream so large that no one can cross it but the bird on its wing." And at that very instant the hare turned into a tremendous stream. When the ogress reached the bank of the stream, she said, "You won't get away with that, my boy." And she told the little ogress, "Run home, girl, and get your father's big bowl." The young one ran off and soon returned with an enormous bowl, which instantly drank up the whole stream. Again the boy feared that the ogress would overtake him, and very quickly, because of her long strides, of course, soon she would catch him. "What are we going to do now, my dearest Bukolla?" "Pick a hair from my tail and put it on the ground." So he did just that. And then Bukolla the cow said to the hare, "By these words I lay the spell that you become a blaze so hot that no one can cross it but the bird on its wing." As soon as she had spoken, the hare turned into a big fire. When the ogress reached a blazing wall, she shouted, "You won't get away with that, my boy." And to the smaller ogress she said, "Go get your father's big bowl, girl." The girl did, and returned with the bull, which then urinated all the water it had drunk from the stream and put out the fire. Once more the boy saw the ogress would catch up with him very soon, because of the length of her strides, and he said, "What are we going to do now, my dearest Bukolla?" "Pick a hair from my tail and put it on the ground," she said. Then to the hare, she did say the words. By these words I lay the spell that you become a mountain so big that no one can surmount it but a bird on its wing. The hare immediately turned into a huge mountain that the boy could see only straight up into the sky. When the ogress came to the mountain, she roared, "You won't get away with that, my boy." To the smaller ogress she said, "Go get me your father's big drill, my girl." Off went the young one, returning with the drill. The ogress then bored a hole straight through the mountain, but when she could see through it, she became a bit too rash. She squeezed herself into the hole, which was way too narrow for her, and got stuck. Finally, she turned into stone, right there in the hole, and that's where she remains to this day. As for the boy, he reached the cottage safe and sound with his book collar, and the old couple were quite relieved to have them both back. The end. Interesting story. Next one's called My Old Lady Wants Something for Her Wool. Now, I think it's wool, but it's spelled W-H-O-R-L, and I'm not sure why, but it's got to be wool, as in wool. Once upon a time, there was a poor old man who lived with his wife in a cottage. They were very poor. The only thing they had of value was a wall of gold on the old woman's spindle. To get them something to eat, the old man used to go out every day hunting or fishing. Not far from the cottage there was a single large mound. It was popular belief that it was inhabited by an elf called Kid House, who was considered a crafty fellow, and definitely somewhat to be wary of and not to go near and make friends. One day, as innumerable times before, it happened that the old man went out hunting, while the old lady stayed at home as usual. It was a fine day, and she sat down outside the hut with her spindle to spin it for a while. Then by accident the gold wool fell from the spindle and rolled off somewhere, so the old woman lost sight of it. This annoyed her more than a little, and she looked for it all over, but to no avail. She couldn't find the wool anywhere. Shortly afterward, the old man returned home, and she told him her misfortune. The man said Kid House probably took it. That would be just like him, and with that he made ready to leave again, telling his wife that he was going to claim the wool from Kid House, or at least get something for it. This cheered the old lady up a little. Without further ado, then, the old man went straight to Kid House's mound, and beat it long and hard and unsparingly with a cudgel. At long length, Kid House finally answered. "Who's that banging on my house?" he asked. The old man replied, "It's your neighbour next door. My old lady wants something for her wool." Kid House asked what he wanted for it. The old man requested a cow that would yield 10 quarts per milking, which Kid House granted him. The old man returned home, bringing his wife the cow. The next day, having milked the cow in the evening and in the morning, and filled all her pots and tubs with milk, the old woman thought she would make some porridge. But then she remembered that she had no grain for it. So she went to her husband and asked him to go to Kid House and request some grain for her porridge. The old man went to Kid House and beat on the mound until he finally answered as before. Kid House said, "Who's that banging on my house?" The man said, "It's your neighbour next door. My old lady wants something for her wool." Kid House asked him what he wanted, and the old man begged some grain from the pot, for the old lady wanted to make porridge. Kid House gave him a barrel of grains. The old man took it home, and his wife did indeed make porridge. When it was ready, the couple sat down to eat, and consumed as much as they could. But having eaten all they could manage, they still had a great deal left in the pot. Then they began to ponder. They pondered for quite some time. what should they do with all these leftovers? And they thought it would be nice to bring some to the people that they loved, the people around them, even maybe their beloved Saint Mary. They soon realised, however, that it wouldn't be easy to get up to her on high, and they agreed to ask Kidhouse for a ladder that would reach all the way up to heaven. They reasoned that it wasn't too much in exchange for the wall. They're going to ask him again. Probably not a good idea with an elf. Again the man went banging on the mound. Kidhouse asked, as he had before, "Who's banging on my door?" And the old man answered once more, "It's your neighbour next door. My old lady wants something for her wall." Hearing that, Kidhouse became absolutely annoyed. "Isn't the blasted wall ever paid for then?" he asked. The old man pleaded with him. He pleaded and pleaded all the more, saying he wanted to bring dear St. Mary the leftover pails of porridge. With that, Kidhouse relented, but eventually gave him the ladder, and even raised it up for him. This pleased the old man very much, and he returned home to his wife. The two of them then made steady for their trip, taking the pails of porridge with them. But when they had gone quite a long way up this ladder, they began to get dizzy, and the result was that they both fell down and splintered their skulls. The splatters of brains and porridge flying all over the world, and wherever blotches of the old couple's brain landed on stones, they turned white. There were specks of white like lichen on the stones, while the porridge turned into yellow ones. Both may be seen on rocks, even up to this day. That's gross. Ugh. I don't like that. That's awful. Awful, awful. Don't like that one. People's brains. Not very good. Okay, guys. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.